The crimson sand of Keth 7 stretched endlessly under twin suns, broken only by jagged rock formations that cast sharp shadows across the wasteland. Captain Sarah Chen adjusted her environmental suit's cooling system as she led her reconnaissance team through the hostile terrain. The planet had been marked for mineral survey, but intelligence reports suggested something else entirely. "Movement at 2 o'clock," whispered Sergeant Martinez through the comm system. His rifle tracked across the rocky outcroppings ahead. "Something big." Sarah raised her hand, signaling the 12-person team to halt. Through her scope, she could see what had caught Martinez's attention. A massive creature lay motionless among the rocks, its dark blue hide contrasting sharply against the red landscape. Even from a distance, she could tell it was enormous. "Could be dead," offered Corporal Williams, the team's medic. "Those scorch marks on the rocks suggest heavy weapons fire." Dr. Elena Vasquez, their xenobiologist, pushed forward with her scanner already active. "Energy readings are faint but present. Whatever it is, it's still alive." She paused, studying her readings more carefully. "These biosignatures are unlike anything in our databases." The team advanced cautiously. As they drew closer, the true size of the creature became apparent. It was easily 12 feet long and 6 feet tall at the shoulder, built like a cross between a tiger and a rhinoceros. Its hide was covered in natural armor plates that gleamed with an almost metallic sheen. 4 legs ended in massive claws designed for both running and combat. The head was wolf-like but larger, with intelligent amber eyes that tracked their movement despite obvious injuries. "Those aren't natural wounds," Martinez observed, keeping his weapon ready but not aimed directly at the creature. "Look at the burns along its flanks. Energy weapons, definitely military grade." Sarah could see he was right. The creature bore multiple burn marks that had clearly come from high-energy plasma rifles. Worse, there were metal restraints around its legs, thick chains that had been partially melted but still held fast. Dr. Vasquez approached slowly, her scanner beeping rapidly. Incredible bone density, redundant organs, enhanced musculature. This creature was engineered for combat. She looked up from her readings. "Captain, this isn't just some wild animal. This is a biological weapon." The creature's eyes fixed on Vasquez as she spoke. There was an intelligence there that sent chills down Sarah's spine. It wasn't looking at them like prey or predator. It was studying them, evaluating them. "It's trying to communicate," William said suddenly. He had been watching the creature's subtle movements. "Look at its ears. The way it positions its head. That's deliberate body language." "Ha!" As if responding to his words, the creature slowly lifted its massive head and made a low, rumbling sound. Not a growl or roar, but something more complex. The universal translator in Sarah's suit caught fragments, identifying tonal patterns that suggested structured communication. "My God," breathed Dr. Vasquez. "It's sapient. This isn't just a biological weapon, it's a person." The implications hit the team like a physical blow. They weren't looking at some abandoned military asset. They were looking at a thinking, feeling being that had been left to die in this wasteland. Sarah made a decision that would change everything. "Williams, assess its medical condition. Vasquez, see if you can improve translation protocols. Martinez, establish a perimeter. Everyone else, defensive positions but keep weapons down. We're not leaving until we understand what happened here." Williams approached carefully, his medical scanner in clear view. The creature watched him intently but didn't resist as he examined the wounds. Severe plasma burns, dehydration, malnutrition. But the restraints are the real problem. They're designed to prevent healing, keeping the wounds open. "That's torture," Martinez said flatly. "Whoever did this wanted it to suffer." Dr. Vasquez had been working with the translation matrix, feeding it recordings of the creature's vocalizations. "I'm getting partial translations. It's definitely trying to communicate, but the linguistic structure is complex." "Wait," she paused, listening to a new sequence of sounds. "I think it just said, 'Help.'" The creature's amber eyes fixed on Sarah directly. Despite its fearsome appearance, there was something unmistakably desperate in that gaze. It spoke again, a series of complex rumbles and growls that the translator struggled with. Abandoned. Brothers dead. Why? Dr. Vasquez translated haltingly. Who are you? Sarah stepped forward slowly, removing her helmet so the creature could see her face. We're humans, she said clearly, hoping the translator would convey the meaning. We found you here. We want to help. The creature's reaction was immediate and unexpected. Its eyes widened with what could only be described as shock. It spoke rapidly, urgently, and the translator caught fragments. Humans. Impossible. Legends. Stories. It knows about us, Sarah realized. But how? This sector's never been in contact with human space. Dr. Vasquez was frantically adjusting her equipment. Captain, I'm picking up structured thought patterns. This creature isn't just intelligent. It's highly educated. The complexity of its neural activity rivals our best scholars. Williams had begun examining the restraints more closely. These chains are made from some kind of adaptive metal. They tighten when the creature struggles, and have neural inhibitors built in. Whoever designed these knew exactly what they were doing. Can you remove them? Sarah asked. Not with our equipment. We'd need heavy cutting tools, or a precise plasma torch. But Captain, if we free this creature, we don't know what it's capable of. The creature had been listening to their exchange. Its enhanced hearing picking up every word. It spoke again, more slowly this time, allowing the translator to work more effectively. Not hurt you, promise, only want, freedom, find pack, avenge brothers, only. Martinez lowered his rifle slightly. It's giving us its word. In my experience, that usually means something to military minds. Sarah studied the creature's eyes again. There was intelligence there, but also honor. Despite its fearsome appearance and obvious combat capabilities, it was asking for help, not demanding it. Vasquez, can you establish better communication? Sarah asked. Give me a few more minutes with the translation matrix. I think I can bridge the linguistic gap. Doctor. Vasquez worked intently, her fingers dancing over her equipment. There. Try now. Sarah faced the creature directly. Can you understand me now? The response came through clearly, though still filtered through the translator's mechanical voice. Yes, human. I understand your words. My name is Kethvar, hunter-warrior of the 9th Pack. I am grateful for your presence in my darkest hour. The formal introduction sent a chill through the team. This wasn't just any creature. The titles suggested military rank and social structure. I'm Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran Colonial Fleet. What happened to you, Kethvar? The creature's eyes darkened with pain that had nothing to do with physical wounds. Betrayal. My pack and I served the hegemony faithfully for 12 cycles. We were their elite shock troops, deployed to the most dangerous conflicts. But we learned too much about their true nature. Kethvar's voice grew stronger as the translator refined its algorithms. The hegemony breeds us from birth for war. We believed we served justice, protected the innocent, but we discovered they use us to subjugate peaceful worlds, to crush anyone who opposes their expansion. Your pack rebelled? Sarah guessed. We refused an order to massacre civilians on a farming world. The hegemony declared us rogue and sent other packs to eliminate us. My brothers died fighting for what was right. I alone survived. And they brought me here to die slowly as an example to others. The story explained the torture device restraints and the plasma burns. Someone had wanted Kethvar to suffer before death, to serve as a warning to other potential rebels. Dr. Vasquez had been scanning the surrounding area during the conversation. Captain, I'm detecting multiple grave sites nearby. Large ones. If this creature's pack was similar in size, 12 graves, Kethvar confirmed. My brothers lie beneath this cursed sand, denied even proper death rites. The hegemony wanted to break my spirit before my body failed. Williams checked his medical readings again. Sir, he's in critical condition. Without treatment, he won't last another day in this heat. Sarah faced a decision that went far beyond a simple rescue mission. Helping Kethvar meant potentially involving humanity in an interstellar conflict they knew nothing about. But leaving him to die violated everything she believed in. Kethvar, if we free you and treat your wounds, what will you do? The creature's eyes blazed with inner fire. Find others like me who question the hegemony's methods. Build a resistance. Show them that their perfect weapons have minds and hearts of their own. He paused, studying Sarah's face. But first, I would learn about humans. Your people exist in legend among my kind. Stories say you are fierce warriors who never abandon allies, who fight impossible odds for principle rather than profit. Martinez snorted. Somebody's been telling tall tales about us. But Sarah felt the weight of those words. If humanity was already part of this creature's mythology, there were implications far beyond this single rescue. Williams, what do you need to treat him? Emergency medical bay on the dropship. I can stabilize him there, but those restraints have to come off first. Martinez, how long would it take to bring cutting equipment from the ship? 4 hours round trip minimum. He might not have that long. Sarah looked at Kethvar again. The creature was weakening visibly, but his eyes remained alert and determined. She made her choice. We do this the hard way. Williams, prepare stimulants to keep him conscious. Vasquez, see if your equipment can interfere with those neural inhibitors. Martinez, prep the emergency stretcher. Captain, Doctor, Vasquez said quietly, I need to tell you something. The energy signatures from those restraints match technology in our intelligence files. The hegemony isn't some unknown alien empire. They're the same force that destroyed the Kepler colony. The blood drained from Sarah's face. The Kepler colony massacre had claimed 15,000 human lives. If the hegemony was responsible, and if they had weapons like Kethvar in their arsenal, humanity was facing a threat beyond anything they had imagined. But it also meant they had just found their first potential ally in what might become an inevitable war. All the more reason to save him, Sarah decided. If the hegemony betrayed their own elite troops, imagine what intelligence he could provide. Dr. Vasquez activated a small device that hummed with electronic interference. This should disrupt the neural inhibitors temporarily. Williams, you'll have maybe 10 minutes before they reset. Kethvar's eyes widened as the suppression field around the restraints flickered. For the first time since they had found him, he seemed to have hope. Human Sarah, he said formally, if you free me, I swear by the honor of my fallen pack that I will owe you a life debt. Among my people, this is a sacred vow. Let's worry about keeping you alive first, Sarah replied. Then we can discuss debts. Williams approached with a plasma torch set to its lowest setting. This is going to hurt, he warned. The metal has partially fused with your hide. I have endured worse, Kethvar replied simply. The first restraint took 8 agonizing minutes to cut through. Kethvar never made a sound, though Sarah could see the pain in his eyes. When the metal finally fell away, the relief on his face was unmistakable. 2 more to go, Williams muttered, checking his equipment's power levels. The second restraint proved even more difficult. The metal had adapted to Williams' cutting frequency and began generating a counterfield. Dr. Vasquez had to modify her disruptor 3 times before they could make progress. By the time they finished, Kethvar was barely conscious. But as the final restraint hit the sand, transformation was immediate. The creature's natural healing abilities, no longer suppressed, began working on the open wounds. Color returned to his eyes, and his breathing became less labored. Remarkable, Dr. Vasquez breathed. His cellular regeneration rate is off the charts. Those wounds are already beginning to close. But Kethvar wasn't focusing on his healing. He was staring at Sarah with an expression she couldn't quite read. You kept your word, he said simply. Even knowing the danger it might bring to your people. The legend spoke truly of human honor. Before Sarah could respond, Martinez's voice crackled over the comm. Captain, we've got company. 3 ships dropping out of orbit, heading this way fast. Configuration unknown, but they're armed. Sarah grabbed her binoculars and looked skyward. 3 sleek vessels were descending through the atmosphere, their hulls gleaming with the same metallic sheen as Kethvar's natural armor. "Hegemony hunter-killers," Kethvar said grimly, struggling to his feet. Even wounded, he moved with predatory grace. "They must have detected the restraint field going down. They come to ensure my death and eliminate any witnesses." "How long do we have?" Sarah asked. "Minutes. Those ships carry full combat packs, 12 warriors each. They will show no mercy to humans who aided a traitor." Sarah's mind raced through their options. Their dropship was 20 minutes away. The terrain offered little cover. Against 36 elite alien warriors, her 12-person team wouldn't stand a chance in open combat. But as she looked at Kethvar, she saw something else in his amber eyes. Not defeat or despair, but cold, calculated fury. The restraints were gone. His natural healing was working, and for the first time in who knew how long, he wasn't facing the enemy alone. "Kethvar," she said quietly, "how do you feel about evening some odds?" The creature's lips pulled back in what might have been a smile, revealing teeth designed for rending armor. "Human Sarah, it would be my honor to fight beside you. Let me show you why the hegemony feared my pack enough to betray us." As the enemy ships drew closer, Sarah realized that her simple rescue mission had just become the opening battle of a war that would span the galaxy. But looking at her team's determined faces and Kethvar's fierce resolve, she felt something she hadn't expected. Hope. The ships were landing now, kicking up clouds of crimson sand. Sarah could see armored figures emerging. Weapons already powered and ready. They moved with the same predatory grace as Kethvar, but there was something different in their bearing. Where Kethvar radiated controlled power and intelligence, these creatures seemed driven by pure aggression. "They're not like you," Sarah observed. "No," Kethvar agreed grimly. "These are from the newer generations, bred for obedience rather than independent thought. They will not question orders or show mercy, but they also lack the tactical flexibility that made my pack elite." Dr. Vasquez was frantically packing her equipment. "Captain, we need to move. My scans show they have energy weapons that could cut through our armor like paper." But Sarah was studying the terrain with a tactical eye. The rock formations that had hidden Kethvar could provide cover, and the grave sites of his pack offered elevated positions. It wasn't ideal, but it was workable. The first hunter died before Sarah even saw Kethvar move. One moment, the armored creature was advancing through the rocks, energy rifle sweeping for targets. The next, Kethvar materialized behind it like a shadow made flesh, massive claws finding the joints in its armor with surgical precision. The hunter's death was silent and efficient. "Jesus," Martinez breathed through the comm. "Did you see that?" Sarah had seen it, but barely. Kethvar moved with a speed that seemed to defy physics. His massive frame somehow flowing through the rocky terrain without disturbing so much as a pebble. This wasn't just combat prowess. This was art. The remaining hunters reacted to their packmate's death with disciplined efficiency that spoke to their training. They immediately formed a defensive circle and began systematic sweeps of the area. But Sarah could see they were rattled. Whatever they had expected to find on this mission, it wasn't Kethvar at full combat effectiveness. "Their leader is broadcasting orders," Dr. Vasquez reported quietly. "Something about containment protocols and calling for orbital support." "Oleate. How long before that support arrives?" Sarah asked. "Unknown, but I'm detecting ship movements in upper atmosphere. We may have company soon." Sarah made rapid calculations. They needed to end this engagement quickly, before superior numbers made their position untenable. But she also needed to think beyond this immediate battle. If they survived, they would need intelligence about hegemony capabilities and intentions. "Kethvar," she called softly into her comm, hoping his enhanced hearing would pick up the transmission. "Can you take them alive?" The response came back as a barely audible whisper. "Some. But pack leader must die. He carries neural implant. Cannot be turned." Sarah understood. In conflicts like this, there were always those too indoctrinated to be reasoned with. But prisoners could provide valuable intelligence, assuming they survived the next few minutes. Two more hunters had separated from the main group, trying to flank their position. Martinez tracked them through his scope, but held his fire on Sarah's orders. They needed to let Kethvar work without interference. The alien moved like liquid death through the shadows. Sarah watched him stalk the first flanking hunter with predatory patience, waiting for the perfect moment. When it came, the takedown was swift and brutal. But instead of killing, Kethvar struck with precision that left the hunter unconscious but alive. The second flanker never saw him coming. Kethvar seemed to simply appear from the rock itself, one massive hand covering the creature's mouth, while the other applied pressure to specific nerve clusters along its neck. The hunter went limp immediately. 2 down, non-lethal, Sarah reported to her team. Stay in position. But the pack leader had spotted Kethvar's position during the second takedown. Energy blasts began hammering the rocks where he had been. Superheated plasma, turning stone to molten glass. Sarah could feel the heat even from her covered position 50 meters away. Kethvar was forced to move, abandoning stealth for speed. He bounded between rock formations as energy weapons tracked his movement, the landscape around him erupting in fountains of molten stone and superheated air. He's too exposed, Williams observed. They'll bring him down with concentrated fire. Sarah made a command decision that went against every tactical manual she had ever read. All units. Covering fire. Draw their attention. Her team opened up with everything they had. Human plasma rifles and particle beams lit up the alien hunter's position, forcing them to divide their attention between Kethvar and this new threat. It wasn't enough firepower to seriously damage the alien's superior armor, but it disrupted their coordinated assault. Kethvar used the distraction perfectly. Instead of retreating to cover, he charged directly into the enemy formation. Sarah watched in amazement as he moved through their defensive positions like a force of nature, his natural armor deflecting energy blasts that should have been fatal, while his claws found every weakness in their protection. The pack leader was the last to fall, and his death was neither quick nor merciful. Kethvar had 12 brothers to avenge, and his fury was a terrible thing to witness. When it was over, 4 hunters lay dead and 2 remained unconscious. But the victory came at a cost. Kethvar's wounds had reopened, and fresh burns covered his flanks. Medical assistance required, he called out, his voice strained but controlled. But first, secure the prisoners. They will wake soon. Williams and Martinez moved to restrain the unconscious hunters while Dr. Vasquez began examining their equipment. Sarah approached Kethvar, who was leaning heavily against a rock formation but still alert and dangerous. That was incredible, she said simply. I've never seen combat skills like that. There. My pack was better, Kethvar replied, pain evident in his voice. Together, we could have taken 50 such hunters without casualties. Alone. He gestured to his fresh wounds. I make mistakes. Sarah studied his injuries while Williams approached with medical supplies. These wounds are serious. You need treatment. After we question the prisoners. And after we prepare for orbital bombardment. As if summoned by his words, Dr. Vasquez's scanner began beeping urgently. Multiple contacts dropping from orbit. Energy signatures are massive. These aren't hunters. They're destroyers. Through her binoculars, Sarah could see them coming. 6 massive ships descending through the atmosphere. Their hulls bristling with weapons that could crack planets. The message was clear. The hegemony was willing to sacrifice this entire world to eliminate one rogue warrior and any witnesses to his rescue. How long? Sarah asked. 15 minutes to weapons range, Dr. Vasquez calculated. Those ships carry enough firepower to turn this entire region into glass. One of the captured hunters was beginning to stir. Kethvar moved to stand over the creature, his presence radiating barely controlled menace. When the hunter's eyes opened and saw his captor, fear replaced confusion. You cannot escape, the hunter said in accented but clear standard. The swarm comes. All who aid traitors die. Who commands the swarm? Kethvar asked, his voice deadly quiet. War Alpha Theknat leads the 17th Battle Pack. You remember him, traitor? He was your student once. Sarah saw something break in Kethvar's eyes. Whatever relationship he had once had with this War Alpha, the betrayal cut deep. Theknat lives, Kethvar said to himself. He survived the purge. He leads it. The hunter corrected with vicious satisfaction. The War Alpha ordered your pack's execution personally. Said you taught him that mercy is weakness. But he learned better lessons. Kethvar turned away from the prisoner, his massive frame shaking with emotion. Sarah realized she was witnessing something beyond simple military betrayal. This was personal. Familial even. Captain, Dr. Vasquez called urgently. I'm reading massive energy buildup from the destroyer fleet. They're preparing to fire. Sarah looked at their tactical situation with growing desperation. Their dropship couldn't reach them in time. The enemy had orbital superiority and unlimited firepower. By every military calculation she had ever learned, they were dead. But Kethvar was moving with sudden purpose, examining his fallen enemy's equipment. Their communication array, he said, pulling a complex device from one of the dead hunters. It can reach the destroyer fleet directly. What are you thinking? Sarah asked. War Alpha Theknat believes I am broken, defeated. He expects to find my corpse and evidence of my slow death. Instead, he will hear my voice. Strong and defiant. It will enrage him enough to make a mistake. Sarah began to understand. You want to draw him down here. Make this personal. The War Alpha has commanded from safety for too long. He has forgotten what it means to face an equal enemy. If I can provoke him into personal combat, you'll be facing the leader of 17 battle packs, Sarah pointed out. That's over 200 elite warriors. No, Kethvar said with grim certainty. Theknat's pride will not allow a pack assault against one broken traitor. He will come himself, perhaps with a small honor guard. It is his weakness. The need to prove his superiority in personal combat. Dr. Vasquez was frantically monitoring orbital communications. Captain, energy signatures are spiking. They're 30 seconds from firing. Kethvar activated the communication array and began speaking in his own language, his voice carrying across frequencies to the destroyer fleet above. Sarah couldn't understand the words, but the tone was unmistakable. Challenge, contempt, and barely controlled fury. The response was immediate. Dr. Vasquez's eyes widened as she monitored the enemy communications. Orbital bombardment has been delayed. Multiple ships are breaking formation. One destroyer is changing course, heading directly for our position. It worked, Sarah breathed. He's coming down. War Alpha Theknat and his personal guard. Kethvar confirmed grimly. 12 of the finest warriors the hegemony has produced. They will land in 10 minutes. Sarah looked at her small team and their wounded alien ally. 12 against 13 should have been manageable odds. But these weren't ordinary enemies. These were the elite of the elite, led by someone who had once been Kethvar's student. What do we need to know? She asked. Theknat is faster than me, stronger than me, and completely without honor or mercy. His guard are bonded to him through neural links. They will anticipate his movements and coordinate perfectly. In open combat, they cannot be defeated. Then we don't fight them in open combat, Sarah decided. This is our ground now. We choose the battlefield. Kethvar studied her with new respect. You think like a pack leader. Yes, we can use their arrogance against them. But Captain Sarah, you must understand. When this battle is over, regardless of who wins, the hegemony will know that humans aided me. Your people will become targets. Sarah had already considered this possibility. The moment they had freed Kethvar, humanity had been drawn into a conflict that spanned star systems. But looking at this noble warrior who had sacrificed everything for principle, she knew they had made the right choice. Let them come, she said simply. Humanity doesn't abandon its allies. The captured hunter had been listening to their conversation with growing alarm. You do not understand, he said desperately. The hegemony controls 47 star systems. Your human space is nothing compared to our might. Then why are you so afraid of one rogue warrior? Martinez asked pointedly. If you're so powerful, why does it take orbital bombardment to kill one injured alien? The hunter had no answer for that. Dr. Vasquez was tracking the incoming destroyer. Single ship, approaching fast. Energy signature suggests advanced stealth capabilities. But I can still read them. Landing in 7 minutes, Kethvar began examining the battlefield with tactical eyes, noting sight lines, cover positions, and potential ambush points. They will expect to find me weakened and alone, defending a position. Instead, we give them a hunt. Explain, Sarah said. Theknat knows how I fight when cornered, defensive, methodical, using terrain for protection. He will not expect me to take the offensive, especially with human allies he considers inferior. We use his assumptions against him. Sarah began to see the strategy. We make them come to us, but not where they expect. Force them to split up. Engage on our terms. Exactly. But Captain, there is something else you must know. If we kill War Alpha Theknat, the political implications will be enormous. He is not just a military leader. He is the hegemony's primary enforcer for conquered territories. His death would send shockwaves through their entire power structure. Good, Sarah said flatly. Maybe it's time someone sent them a message. The destroyer was visible now, a sleek predator descending through the crimson sky. As it approached their position, Sarah felt the weight of history settling on her shoulders. This moment would be remembered as either humanity's first victory against an overwhelming enemy, or the beginning of their extinction. But looking at Kethvar's determined stance and her team's ready weapons, she felt that familiar surge of hope. Humans had always been at their best when the odds were impossible. The destroyer touched down in a whirlwind of superheated sand and alien technology. When the dust settled, 13 figures emerged from its hull. Even at a distance, Sarah could see they moved with predatory grace that made the previous hunters look clumsy by comparison. At their head walked a creature that was clearly related to Kethvar, but subtly different. Where Kethvar radiated controlled power and intelligence, this War Alpha projected pure dominance and calculated cruelty. His armor was more advanced, his weapons larger, and his bearing spoke of absolute confidence in his superiority. Kethvar, the War Alpha called out, his voice carrying across the battlefield with technological amplification. My former teacher, come out and face your students' justice. Kethvar stepped into view, no longer trying to hide. Hello, Theknat. I see the hegemony has taught you new lessons since our last meeting. Oh yes, Theknat replied, his tone mocking. I learned that your precious honor and mercy are weaknesses to be exploited. I learned that true strength comes from absolute obedience to superior wisdom. And I learned that teachers who corrupt their students with outdated ideals deserve slow, painful deaths. Then come and deliver that death yourself, Kethvar challenged. Unless you have grown too soft behind your rank and position to face one broken traitor in personal combat. Theknat's response was immediate and explosive. He charged across the battlefield with his guards spread out behind him, their weapons painting the air with deadly energy. The final battle was beginning, and Sarah realized that everything they had done to this point was merely preparation for this moment. The war between humanity and the hegemony was about to be decided by 13 against 13 in the crimson sands of a forgotten world. As energy blasts began lighting up the landscape around them, Sarah made peace with the possibility that she might not live to see the consequences of this day, but she also knew that whatever happened here would echo across the galaxy for generations to come. The age of human isolation was ending, and it was ending in fire and fury, and the defiant roar of a warrior who refused to let tyranny triumph over justice. The battle erupted with devastating intensity. Theknat's guard moved with mechanical precision, their neural links creating a hive-mind coordination that allowed them to anticipate and support each other's movements perfectly. Energy weapons lit up the landscape as they advanced in a formation that should have been impossible to break. But Sarah's team wasn't fighting by hegemony rules. Now, Sarah commanded, and her carefully positioned soldiers opened fire from concealed positions among the rocks. Their targets weren't the heavily armored warriors, but the ground beneath their feet. Human mining charges, hastily rigged by Martinez, detonated in sequence, creating clouds of superheated sand and disrupting the perfect formation. Kethvar used the chaos brilliantly, Instead of meeting the charge head-on as Theknat expected, he struck from the side, his massive frame moving through the dust cloud with deadly purpose. The first guard died before the others even realized their formation was broken. Kethvar's claws finding the vulnerable power coupling that fed the warrior's personal shields. "Impossible!" Theknat roared, his amplified voice carrying across the battlefield. "You were broken. Defeated." "I was alone," Kethvar replied, his own voice carrying clearly despite the chaos. "Now I fight beside true warriors." "You remember what that means, student?" But Theknat had already adapted to the changed battlefield conditions. The neural links that bound his guard allowed them to reorganize instantly, forming a new defensive pattern that accounted for the humans' unconventional tactics. They began targeting the rocky outcroppings where Sarah's team had taken cover, their superior weapons turning stone to molten glass. "We can't stay here," Williams called out as superheated fragments rained down around them. "Their firepower advantage is too great." Sarah was already moving, leading her team through a pre-planned retreat route that would keep them mobile while maintaining pressure on the enemy. But she could see that Kethvar was struggling. Despite his incredible skills, he was still wounded and facing 12 opponents who fought with perfect coordination. Dr. Vasquez had been monitoring enemy communications throughout the battle. "Captain!" "Trude," she called urgently. "I'm detecting massive energy buildup from the destroyer fleet. They're preparing for orbital bombardment regardless of their forces on the ground." The implications were staggering. Theknat was so obsessed with proving his superiority that he was willing to sacrifice his own guard to ensure Kethvar's death. The War Alpha's corruption ran deeper than mere military doctrine. It had become personal madness. "How long?" Sarah asked. 3 minutes to firing sequence initiation. After that, this entire area becomes molten glass." Sarah made a desperate calculation. Their dropship was still minutes away. The enemy ground forces were too strong to defeat in direct combat, but there was one option that might save them all, if she was willing to take an enormous risk. "Kethvar," she called out. "The destroyer. Can you get us aboard?" Even in the middle of combat, she could see his tactical mind working. "The landing ramp is still extended," he confirmed, dropping behind cover as energy blasts painted the air around him. "But the ship's defenses will activate the moment we approach." "Not if we have the right clearance codes, Doctor," Vasquez said suddenly. "I've been monitoring their communications. The destroyer expects Theknat to return with prisoners and evidence. If we can make them believe we're complying." It was a desperate plan with virtually no chance of success, but Sarah could see it was their only option. "What do we need?" "Theknat alive. For starters," Kethvar said grimly. "His neural implants carry the command authority. But Captain, even if we capture him, he will never cooperate." "Leave that to me," Sarah said with grim determination. "Martinez, can you get us a clean shot with the stunners? If we can separate him from his guard, maybe. But those neural links make them almost impossible to divide." Sarah studied the battlefield with desperate intensity. Theknat's guard were maintaining a perfect defensive formation, their overlapping fields of fire covering every approach. But there was something about their positioning that nagged at her tactical instincts. "Kethvar," she called out. "The neural links. Are they two-way? Can the guards feel what Theknat feels?" "Yes," he confirmed, understanding immediately where her thoughts were leading. Emotional feedback, pain response. Even tactical decisions flow through the network. It's what makes them so effective in coordinated combat, and so vulnerable to psychological warfare, Sarah realized. If we can break Theknat's mental state, we disrupt the entire formation. But before she could act on this insight, the tactical situation changed dramatically. One of the guard warriors had worked around their flank and was approaching William's position with weapons charged. The young medic would be dead in seconds if someone didn't intervene. Kethvar moved without hesitation, abandoning his covered position to intercept the flanking warrior. His massive frame absorbed multiple energy blasts as he closed the distance, his natural armor holding against punishment that would have vaporized a human. The collision between the two aliens was like watching titans clash, all claws and armor and superhuman strength, but the rescue cost him dearly. Kethvar's existing wounds reopened under the strain, and fresh burns covered his hide. When the guard warrior finally fell, Kethvar was barely standing. "Medical assistance required," he called out, his voice strained but still controlled. "But I can continue fighting." Theknat's response to his student's heroic action was immediate and telling. "Still protecting the weak," he called out mockingly. "Still believing that mercy and sacrifice make you strong. Watch as I demonstrate the true meaning of power." The War Alpha raised his primary weapon, a massive energy cannon that could punch through starship armor. But instead of targeting Kethvar, he aimed it directly at Williams's position. The message was clear. He would kill the humans one by one to break his former teacher's spirit. That was when Sarah understood how to defeat him. "Theknat!" she called out, stepping into full view despite the enormous risk. "You call yourself a War Alpha, but you hide behind your guard like a coward. If you're so superior, prove it in single combat." The challenge struck Theknat like a physical blow. Through the amplified comm system, his response carried to every warrior on the battlefield. "A human challenges me? A weak, soft creature from a species that has never faced true warfare? I'm challenging a student who forgot his teacher's most important lesson," Sarah replied clearly. "That true strength comes from protecting others, not from causing suffering." She could feel the ripple of confusion and doubt flowing through the neural network. Theknat's guard were experienced warriors, but they were also still capable of recognizing honor when they saw it. Sarah's willingness to face their leader in single combat was exactly the kind of gesture their own military traditions respected. Theknat felt the doubt from his subordinates and responded with fury. "You dare question my honor? Very well, human. I accept your challenge. When I am finished with you, I will make Kethvar watch as I execute your team one by one." But as the War Alpha stepped forward to face Sarah in single combat, Kethvar intervened. "No," he said simply, moving to place himself between Sarah and his former student. "If there is to be single combat, it will be between teacher and student. This is our way." The formal challenge sent another ripple through the guard formation. Even corrupted by hegemony indoctrination, they recognized the ancient traditions of their people. Single combat between teacher and student was sacred, inviolable. Theknat's eyes blazed with hatred and anticipation. "Yes," he hissed. "Let us end this properly. I will show you how completely your lessons have been replaced by superior wisdom." The two warriors faced each other in a circle cleared by mutual consent. Sarah's team held their positions, weapons ready but not aimed. Theknat's guard did the same, their perfect coordination temporarily suspended by the formal nature of the challenge. "You taught me that mercy was strength," Theknat said as they circled each other. "But the hegemony showed me that mercy is death. You taught me to protect the innocent, but they showed me that innocence is ignorance. You taught me honor, but they taught me victory." Kethvar's response was quiet but carried clearly across the battlefield. "And in accepting their teachings, you became everything I taught you to fight against." The first exchange came without warning. Theknat moved with liquid speed, his enhanced weapons painting arcs of destruction through the air. But Kethvar had trained him, knew every technique and favored combination. He flowed around the attacks like water, his own claws finding gaps in armor that shouldn't have existed. The battle was beautiful and terrible to watch. Two masters of warfare, one representing the corrupted efficiency of tyranny, the other embodying the principled resistance of justice. Their combat was poetry written in violence, each movement calculated for maximum effect. But Sarah could see that Kethvar was losing. His wounds and exhaustion were taking their toll, while Theknat fought with the enhanced strength of hegemony modifications. The War Alpha's armor was more advanced, his weapons more powerful, and his conditioning more complete. "Orbital bombardment in 60 seconds, Dr. Vasquez reported quietly. "Regardless of who wins, we need to move." Sarah made another desperate decision. "When I give the signal, stun them both. We'll sort out the details after we're off this planet." But the signal never came. In the final exchange of the duel, something unexpected happened. Theknat, overconfident in his superiority, attempted a killing blow that left him momentarily exposed. Kethvar took the attack deliberately, allowing the energy blast to burn through his side in order to get close enough for a final strike. His claws found Theknat's throat with surgical precision, but instead of delivering a killing blow, he stopped. For a moment that stretched into eternity, teacher and student stared into each other's eyes. "Mercy," Kethvar said softly. "The lesson you forgot." Theknat's response was a whispered plea that his amplified comm system carried to everyone present. "Teacher, what have I become?" The neural feedback of their leader's moment of clarity hit the guard formation like a shockwave. Suddenly, 12 of the hegemony's most elite warriors were remembering who they had been before their conditioning, questioning everything they had been taught to believe. "Orbital strike in 20 seconds, Dr. Vasquez called urgently, but the guards' confusion had created opportunity. Several of them were already moving toward the destroyer, their leader's moment of doubt translating into action through the neural links. The ship's defensive systems, programmed to recognize Theknat's authority, remained inactive as the confused warriors approached. "Everyone move," Sarah commanded. "We sort this out in space." The retreat to the destroyer was chaos, but organized chaos. Kethvar supported the barely conscious Theknat, while Sarah's team provided covering fire against the few guards who were still following hegemony programming. Dr. Vasquez was frantically working to override the ship's security systems using captured authorization codes. They made it aboard with seconds to spare. As the destroyer lifted off, orbital bombardment turned the battlefield below into molten glass. The graves of Kethvar's pack disappeared in nuclear fire, along with any evidence of what had transpired on the surface. But aboard the destroyer, a more important transformation was taking place. Theknat's moment of clarity had spread through the neural network, and one by one, his guards were questioning everything they had been programmed to believe. The hegemony's perfect soldiers were remembering that they had once been individuals with thoughts and feelings of their own. "What have we done?" one of them asked, his voice carrying the weight of a dozen atrocities. "What have we become?" Kethvar, despite his grievous wounds, found the strength to address his former enemies with compassion rather than condemnation. "You became what they needed you to become. But that does not define who you choose to be now." Dr. Vasquez was monitoring communications from the hegemony fleet above. "They're demanding our immediate return and surrender of all prisoners. But something's wrong. There's confusion in their command structure. Multiple ships are breaking formation." Sarah realized what was happening. News of Theknat's capture and the guards' defection was spreading through the hegemony forces. Other warriors were beginning to question their conditioning, to remember who they had been before the indoctrination began. "We've started something bigger than a rescue mission," she said to Kethvar. "This could be the beginning of a revolution." Kethvar nodded weakly. The hegemony's greatest strength has always been the absolute loyalty of their warrior caste. But that loyalty was built on lies and conditioning. When even one crack appears, the whole structure becomes vulnerable, Sarah finished. But they won't give up without a fight. This ship, these warriors, they're all evidence of hegemony war crimes. We've painted targets on ourselves and our species, then we make sure we're not alone when they come, Theknat said suddenly. His voice was weak but clear, the neural implant damage, allowing his true personality to surface for the first time in years. There are others like us throughout the hegemony forces. Warriors who remember honor, who question orders, who protect rather than destroy. One of the guards stepped forward, removing his helmet to reveal features similar to Kethvar's but marked by years of enforced brutality. War Alpha speaks truth. Many of us have doubted, but never dared speak our thoughts. If word spreads that rebellion is possible, then we give them a rallying point, Sarah decided. This ship, these warriors, proof that the hegemony can be defied and defeated. But first, we need to get to safety and treat the wounded. Dr. Vasquez looked up from the navigation controls. I've found something interesting in the ship's databases. There's a location marked as Sanctuary, coordinates outside hegemony space, heavily shielded. It might be a safe harbor for refugees, or a trap, Williams pointed out pragmatically as he worked to stabilize Kethvar's wounds. At this point, anywhere is safer than here, Sarah replied. Plot a course. Maximum speed. As the destroyer broke free of the planet's gravity well and entered hyperspace, Sarah found herself contemplating the magnitude of what they had accomplished. A simple rescue mission had become the opening move in an interstellar war of liberation. Humanity, ready or not, was now part of a conflict that spanned galaxies. But looking at the reformed warriors around her, beings who had chosen freedom over security and justice over obedience, she felt that familiar surge of hope. This was what humanity had always been best at. Inspiring others to be more than they thought possible. To fight for principles, rather than power. The war ahead would be brutal and costly. The hegemony commanded resources beyond imagination and had ruled through fear for generations. But they had made one crucial mistake. They had underestimated the power of conscience. The irresistible force of beings who refused to accept that might makes right. Kethvar, despite his wounds and exhaustion, managed to find the strength for one final observation. Human Sarah, he said formally, you have given me something I had lost hope of ever finding again. What's that? She asked. A pack, he replied simply. Brothers and sisters willing to fight for something greater than themselves. As the destroyer raced through hyperspace toward an uncertain future, Sarah realized that Kethvar was right. They weren't just refugees fleeing a superior enemy. They were the beginning of something new. A force that would show the galaxy that freedom was worth any price, and that those who stood for justice would never stand alone. The hegemony had created the perfect warriors through conditioning and control, but humanity had done something far more powerful. They had reminded those warriors who they chose to be. In the end, that would make all the difference. The ship's communications array came alive with encoded transmissions from across hegemony space. Other warriors, other packs, other individuals who had heard whispers of rebellion and decided that freedom was worth the risk. The revolution had begun with a single act of mercy on a forgotten world, but it would spread like wildfire across the stars, and at its heart would be an unlikely alliance between a species that had never known defeat and warriors who had rediscovered the meaning of honor. Together, they would show the galaxy that tyranny, no matter how powerful, could never truly defeat those who refused to surrender their souls. The age of the hegemony was ending. The age of freedom was about to begin.